Mm-hmm. Kind of breaking up there, Matt. Hold on, sorry. Um, Let me just try one little thing here. Uh, Let me just check that. Yep, we are live, and I can hear you a little bit better now that your video's off. That's great. Um, so let's just recap a little bit. So this practice for you was a living hell, and you detailed some specific techniques about body scanning, about uh, eating only twice a day, about some other specific techniques about like just delving into your personal stuck mind. You don't have your phone, you don't have anything with you except just you, your consciousness, and your mind. And you have to learn how to use those three together to get through what you described as a personal hell. Right? Yes. Mm. Wow. Mm. Right. Yeah, totally. I can totally relate. Like I don't I recently went on a pilgrimage to Japan, and yeah, I you saw some of the pictures on Facebook. Like I've been sharing it and bragging about it for months now. And it was one of the hardest things I've done in a long time. I got very sick afterwards just from not being prepared for how powerful this experience would be. And it's one of those things where, and I'm sure you could relate to this part of it, where in that journey, when you're going that far towards the edge, you have to heal from that. You have to recover from that because you're cutting open wounds to bleed out some illness that you have, spiritual illness. within you. Right, 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 right. Well, okay, so you know my background, I'm an engineer, right? So you can literally turn this into a bullet point list. You can go down the list and you can ask, well, is my body the one that's suffering? Well, not really, because like I can go to sleep and dream a suffering experience and my body's perfectly fine and not involved at all. I can go into a deep meditative state and experience a profound suffering that you can only experience in deep meditation, but you're just sitting there. Like the worst of it is your legs get stagnant with blood, right? But other than that, you can just get up and walk around. That's not a tight bound rope around you. Right. 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 Mm. Right. Right. Even okay, so even if what you're feeling is still pain, it may just be a memory of that sensation, right? So it's it's something that doesn't and that's an interesting topic that we might get into is like memory. It's something that exists here in the now that represents something that happened in the past. So and that wraps into how existence works in the first place is like this dualistic nature of like yeah, it happened in the past, but we're remembering it in the now. Or on the inverse is like we're thinking about our plan for the future, but that doesn't exist. That's out there. We're doing it here and now. Sure, go. Yeah, stop. Yep. Okay. So I can remember the moment when I looked in the driver's manual. Wow. Wow. Right. We would be clueless. Right. If you're constantly thinking about, am I in the present moment? How could you be there? Hmm. Right. 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 So for that, I have two questions then. Do you suppose there is an analogy we could make to describe what we're doing here? And number two, how do you not fall into the trap of one, nihilism, and two, solipsism? Right, 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 mm, right, right, right. That reminds me of a quote. I forgot who said it. Um, Basically, it boils down to how much of reality do you want to see? How wide is your lens? How much of reality? How deeply do you want to get to know that pin right in front of you? Because yeah, it has a physical form, but like I guarantee you, like in some universe, in some way, that pen has a personality that grew up, had a family in some past life, and just somehow managed to become a pen. But also, it reminds me of a Zen Buddhist story where the famous master was um, famous for being silent. His vow was silence, and he would take his disciples out to the forest on a walk every day, and like he would choose his favorite disciple to go on the specific path out to the cliff to watch the beautiful sunset. And one day he chose his favorite disciple to come with him to go to the cliff and watch the sunset. And of course, you're supposed to stay in perfect silence all the way to the entrance of the path, all the way towards the path, all the way during the watching of the sunset, and all the way back. When they get there, his favorite disciple, after many times of doing this perfectly, looks at the sunset and has a moment where he wakes up. He becomes enlightened and says, "Wow, what a beautiful sunset," and instantly falls back to reality. Hmm. 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 Right. 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 Wow. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Wow. That's beautiful. Yeah, like I I never had words to put to it, but I've experienced some things like that in the past myself. Where you just lose all touch and become nothing and perceiving everything simultaneously. Like the yin and the yang. You're both at the same time and you're within both at the same time. Right. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. The famous veil. Right. Right. We're all just, as some others put it, I could rattle off names, but some call it source, some call it oneness, some call it unity, but some call it even just God, just straight up. And I understand all of those perspectives, having been connected at some points in my life with it and understanding its motivation, understanding its goals, its desires, and its love. It's just a beautiful way to experience this life, this reality, your perception of it, and realize and get the ultimate gift of realization that it doesn't matter. This is a video game. It doesn't really exist, but it has some, fun aspects to it that you get to explore, you know? Yeah. Like a university degree. Absolutely. Mm, yeah. Right. 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 Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm kind of one of those guys who's a glutton for suffering, just because I know the value, you know? Right. Mm. Yeah, for sure. That reminds me of a lot. You said it's like doing neurosurgery for 10 days straight. That reminds me a lot of my first experience with the plant medicine DMT. Because I described it to my brother immediately the day after I did the experience, and I told him it was like having expert alien neurosurgeons in my brain fixing all the shit that I fucked up, all the shit that I'm attached to, and just snipping away and just doing their job. And I can imagine if you take that experience and you consciously explore that, because what's the difference, right? Doing it through this facilitated mean or doing it from your own willpower. And the benefit of doing it with your own willpower is, like you said, you get 10 days as opposed to 15 minutes. Wow. Right. I'm sorry, you're breaking up again. Could you repeat? Absolutely. Absolutely. Sure. Right. So I I'll have to admit I'm a little bit of a guy about DMT. When I was doing it, I did it a lot. So my first experience was extremely peaceful. Just like I said, it was like having a surgeon, like a staff of surgeons comforting you. Like it's more than just like having the work done. It's having the work done while being sung to, while having warm sensations roll around your body. You experience so much more than you know how to experience in this physical reality, in this body. So I'll tell you about one particular entity I met. Um, it was my higher self, and he took a visual form for me, and it looked pretty much exactly as I do now, with the exception of a longer neck, blue skin, no nose, like almost like a how they would describe a gray, but blue. And it started off with me just being very tiny, and this entity was 20 stories tall. And the interesting thing about it was sitting in meditation, but it didn't have legs, it had tentacles. So it had like 8 to 10 tentacles that would spin around and do its little tasks and basically just take care of business while he was sitting there in complete like meditation, like conscious, like just beaming out to me specifically and telling me like, hey, we are this network of consciousness. We are alive and well. We're here to stay a lot longer than you're going to. So you have two choices, basically, he told me. You can either get on board or you can suffer forever. And I chose at that moment. That was one of the other defining moments in my journey. I chose at that moment to get on board. And as soon as I did, as soon as I made that decision, my higher self acknowledged it, and I became the same size as him. And I was standing there in my full human body, experiencing things as I normally would, except he was there in the room with me with his tentacles and blue skin and no nose and everything. Yeah. Soul food. Right. Right. It's amazing. Absolutely. Right. 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 Yeah. Well, I mean, it's definitely the case for me and as well, where now once I was introduced to these types of entities, and like with our sessions when you did hypnotherapy for me, we met some of my past lives. We went into my childhood. We explored my higher self in a big way, you know, and I feel like and that was just between you and me. No drugs were involved. No no substances, no plant medicines, no eye drops, no nothing. And I attribute that to having met these entities before. And I also feel like I would have met them regardless of what journey I took. And right. I have a question for you. There's this theory that's been kicking around in my mind for many years. I like to call it the theory of inevitability. Like the Thanos sort of thing. What do you think of that concept where yeah, maybe we're not really, it's not a reality as we would think like a physical universe would behave by laws and metrics and has matter and does this and does that, and you can predict it to a point. But what if that's only the case in this larger scheme of things where, yeah, these things follow rules, but you have all of the rules that you could follow, like literally unbounded books of rules. So inevitably, everything will happen. Right. Hmm. Right. Because there's only one good choice. Right. Hmm. Totally. Yeah. Wow. That's um yeah. Everything it just turns out that way. And what where we get trapped, where we get stuck, like you say, with our phones and with our distractions and with our monkey mind, let's bring it back to the topic. Where we get trapped is attaching that little flashlight that we have, that flashlight and the laser pointer of attention span, right? We get so attached to where that's at in this soup of inevitability, and that's where the soup gets thicker, is once we identify with the flashlight that's moving through this thing. Right. Right. Did you ever see that old kind of woo-woo science movie, What the Blink Do We Know? Do you know that one? Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, that tickles my that part of my brain where it's like, oh yeah, that is kind of how it works, isn't it? Like if you take just simple principles of quantum mechanics and stuff like that, that's how it plays out. Mm-hmm. Right, right, right. Yeah, right, right. Miscommunications. Right, right, You're just saying what it's not. Right. Wow. Yeah. It's like who was it? Bruce Lee. Be like water, my friend. Just be that. Become the path. Don't even worry about it. Just be nobody, and you will get through. Right. 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 And here's what this just one thing before we go is here's what I struggle with is you can't interpret that for other people either. They have to experience it in the purest form they can. You can't take a quote and you can't apply it to somebody's situation. They still won't get it until they're ready. Right. 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 And yeah. And it's kind of funny when you do let that go and you start to see things as they kind of are, you look back at the fact that you are a human being in a human body and you see people around you and you go, that person is cool. That person is cool. That person's asleep still. That person's like, don't even go close, you know? You get, it's like when two monks meet each other in the street, they need no introduction. A thief knows a thief when they see one. You know, because we've got the secret and we know how to steal, plunder, and cheat using that to our advantage, but we don't because why? What's the point? That's kind of the realization we've had was you know, the quiet, like you said in the beginning, the quieter you are, the more you can hear, the easier it is to see when things are calm. Right. Great. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you for this conversation. Yeah. Matthew Langford, hypnotherapy. Look him up on Facebook, Instagram. Any other last thoughts you want to throw out there? Mm. Yeah, absolutely. You got to do the work. You got to. All right. Right. You realize. Thank you, sir. It was a beautiful podcast. I hope to see you again soon and we can do more. Bye.